Well, the basic need of food probably is more important, but maybe I was mistaken. I don't see anybody leaving. I would like to suggest a continuation of what has been discussed, because of course we need to take into account the information that were given by Dr. Dembski and the previous speakers. They are also the result of what I'm going to discuss, because I'm going to discuss the behaviors of up generation on the Instagram, taken as an example, because but this indicates how young people function today. Well, briefly about the methodology, because the method that I applied was analysis of the media content, and I analyzed approximately 500 Instagram accounts. That was the first part of the analysis, quantitative. But then all the doubts that I had based on that material, I supplemented by 10 interviews. And what did I analyze in the quantitative studies? I wanted to check whether the characteristics of the up generation can also be seen visually. I analyzed the topics of the photographs, the descriptions of the photographs, the number of likes, activity on the account, what it looks like. Does it depend anyhow on what's presented on the account? Does it influence on how the image of the young person is presented? And I also tried to discover what rules of presentation of their images young people apply in practice. We can take a look at it. And I also took into account the number of observers and the comments to the photographs. And I tried to analyze 3 characteristics of the up generation. First of all, this is the generation that uses very shallow, indirect communication. What has been said about hug me mom, this is the competence that the young generation is missing. Probably young people wouldn't be even able to demand this direct contact, which is connected with emotions. And the second element, or the second characteristic of this generation, is creativity and imagination. But of course, the application would give you some algorithm for behavior. If I don't have a GPS and I don't know how to find a way, then I'm not going to make an appointment with anybody. And the third element of or characteristic of this generation is the media identity. So I'm doing my utmost for me to be seen very positively. Sometimes shocking, but at least something for people to remember. So it doesn't matter how people talk about you and what they say about you, it's important that they are talking about you. So a lot of likes, a lot of hearts, this means that people are following you. And I analyzed those accounts primarily that were public accounts. And the interviews indicated that if those were private accounts, there is a smaller number of likes, the smaller number of observers. So I start a public account in order to have better statistics showing the value that I have. So young people translate those numbers into their value, their identity. So it's like, it doesn't matter what I represent, what I know, what I've learned, what skills I've acquired. What matters is how many likes I have. So why did I choose Instagram? Because this is the place where, in a simpler manner than on Facebook, I'm able to sum up the likes, because there is less additional information included. And this is the place, this is the application, which is connected with the Facebook, but it's actually it requires more commitment from young people, 50 times bigger. And, well, it's 20 times more popular than Twitter. So today, people check what's on the Instagram, then Facebook, and then other social media. So first I check whether there have been any likes of my posts. Maybe I'm observing somebody, maybe somebody's observing me. And what are the topics of the content of the accounts that I've analyzed? Well, you can see these categories on the slide. But, well, selfies are the most important. Everybody's taking a selfie. And then, of course, we can analyze what is seen there. Any situation can be important. But when I discuss the criteria, it turns out that what matters is what is not available to somebody else. If I go for holidays to the place where nobody's been before, or if I have a beautiful picture, and well, we've been discussing the different eating disorders, and we've seen the photographs. Definitely they've been processed by some software. So this is the way of presentation and visualization of yourself. Women or girls are more active in showing places, landscapes, travel. So not necessarily the person, but the place where which somebody cannot access because they cannot afford it, or they can't be there, or they didn't see the sunset because they couldn't be there at the right time, etc. So what is important is a very subjective thing. When I asked young people, well, you're using this category, do you know why you have so many likes? Do you know what elements to use to influence that? Well, the only repeated factor was that it was not available or accessible for other people. So this, defines your quality or your value. What also should be noted are the interiors. Here, women are more active. Sport is more popular among men, although women also refer to fitness classes, etc., etc. And fashion and beauty, men and women are equally active. So there is no difference in showing of how to take care of your looks and how to function in a fashionable manner. Here, the same results for men and women. Now, let me show you the techniques used by young people. A very simple software which you can find on the internet. It doesn't have to be taken from the Instagram. Many people whom we've interviewed, they have mentioned that the software from Instagram is poor, so they prefer to use external software. But the thing is that a photograph showing something natural, even if the parameters were selected right, will not be attractive. So we need to change something. Maybe you don't see it clearly on this photograph, but here this picture is clearer. I mean, if somebody is not presented in very sharply, then nobody will notice him. So this is the simplest method. I mean, it was processed by a 7-year-old, and people who are involved in Instagram, they wouldn't publish a photograph if it was not processed. If they don't have an internet, they will find it on the smartphone, etc. They usually take less than half an hour to post a photograph. Well, when I went on holidays, only after the holidays, I put the photographs on. So the information needs to be fresh, but of course the photograph has to be tactically processed. The second rule show something which is not available for others. So either positive things, where I went, what I did, whom I met. This may be a photograph with an important person. Young people well, sometimes correct the pictures, they add somebody important from another photograph. There are also cases like that. So the scale of what is not available for some people changes very fast. If I repeated the study in several months' time, maybe the criteria for not being available would be completely different. And the third rule are hashtags. I mean, there is nothing better than putting a hashtag, because this is the way to search the application very fast. And we've made an experiment, because my daughter helped me. We opened a fictitious account. We put photographs. You know, sometimes there are those places where you can take a photograph pretending you're somebody else, and we put the Polish girl hashtag, and soon after that there were there were 200 observers. If you add the word sex, there will be even more likes, and people that I talked to said that that was one of the very important rules, because they check which words in hashtags are catchy words. So even if the content of the post or the photograph is not attractive, if you add the right words to the hashtag, they can obtain lots of likes or a lot of observers. Today, at the beginning of the day, it was said that men are more visual and women focus more on feelings. So the introduction to some attributes of women also leads to the post being viewed more times.
Okay, creation, how does it look like? We know that there are different techniques and it's visible on accounts. But what do young people do with information they receive from different accounts? Well, first of all, what comes first is the number of likes. If the number is too low, in 90% of cases, posts are removed. This used to be a less frequent practice in the old days, but today, when I compare different pictures posted online, and if some of them attract few posts, if they did not resonate with the audience very well, if the image is not striking, if it does not do well for the up generation, because those people remember that those images will stay online forever. You can't change them. So any cock-ups are treated as a serious incident. So probably it was not the right picture, perhaps the topic was not right, or perhaps it wasn't enhanced in the right way. So the number of likes indicates the tactics to be followed to create next post. For example, with few likes, they delete photos, and they also they resort to different topics. For example, if they used to post selfies before, they will now try to go for views, for sport, to see perhaps it will get more followers. Okay, the number of followers. Okay, the bigger number of followers, the more active followers are, the more keener they are to follow a given account or posts. Well, people whose accounts I've analyzed stick to certain themes. Okay, if they decide something has been tried and tested, if it works well and helps them attain the goal, or to get as many likes and followers as possible, they stay with their tactics. But if they don't get the results they expect, they delete posts or they switch to a new topic on Instagram. Okay, this is also important, how many posts you have, and I've analyzed very different accounts. For example, some accounts with 10 pics only, these are usually beginners, but there are also accounts with 400 photographs. So on accounts with lots of photographs, you could also see what's the frequency of posting on Instagram. And I was surprised by results of my analysis, because 4% of analyzed posts and analyzed accounts were accounts where something new was published every day. So you had daily activity or even more frequent activity. If content was posted twice a week, this is 30%. And there are also people who post things 3 or 4 times a month. That means once a week. I was surprised by results, because all accounts which I analyzed were public and active, and it turns out that, you know, things that we believe in are not always supported by research, what means that not everyone is posting more than a dozen pictures on Instagram, perhaps because when you post things very often you lose interest. If you make people wait, perhaps you will be able to attract more attention, but it doesn't really, we don't really know how it works. But interestingly enough, 20% of the analyzed accounts are run by people who are responding to different events. I think it's a very precious information for educators. Every 5th person posting something on Instagram does it in response to an event, to a meeting, to an important do, because this is an incentive which spurs them into action. These are also things that are most frequently covered on Instagram as news. Okay, very briefly about comments. Okay, a comment on comments. Yes, I know it's getting late. Okay, it's a generation which speaks with images. So about 90% of comments are emoticons. I was working with students and we were discussing negative and positive emoticons, and responses varied depending on age, because it turns out that the same emoticon may convey a different meaning for different age groups. So it's fair to say that the audience of these comments are also subjectively evaluating their content. So perhaps the sender was going wax lyrical about a certain picture, and the addressee did not interpret it right. But most comments published under photographs are positive in tone, what is heartwarming, but it indicates that if we decide to post a comment, we usually don't torment the person who has posted something. And we are trying to give a positive for positive, you know, this mutuality rule. I don't know if you've noticed it, and you can feel that, you know, people sense that, you know, I liked something, so, you know, I should expect positive things in return. So the more followers you have, the more likes you have. It's pro rata. And of course, statistical dependencies are also important between all those elements. Okay, and how does it translate to the app generation? Their identity is external. Research proves that what comes first is appearance. Okay, commenting on previous presentations, yes, this is what it is. Teenagers we've talked to admitted that they can practice one pose all day long just to get a picture right for Instagram, because they don't want to look fat. Fat was the word very often repeated by girls, though they have the strange poses. Very often photos are made by friends who are saying, okay, do it again. I've told you before I look slimmer. if you shoot me at this and this angle. Okay, and interestingly, male young men don't attach such great attention to all those visual tricks that enhance their looks. A quantitative comparison is interesting. For example, I have most likes, I have lots of followers, you know, it's a cachet of popularity of different videos, for example, depicting daily routines. People become celebrities overnight because popularity for them translates directly into their value. Okay, you are not anonymous online, but many people tend to think that, you know, people will forget what was happening. It's not true. Young people do realize that things stay online forever, so they really struggle with cock-ups. There is no intimacy. What shows that Instagram, and I wanted to test it, is a communication platform. It's not direct, it's volume oriented, but it's also a place where young people can continue indirect communication with a wider audience or their friends. Okay, and the next feature of the app generation, image. The image takes the center stage. It speaks volumes for them. And final element, imagination. Young people said in interviews, see how creative we are, see what miles we go to take this perfect snap. One of the girls we interviewed said that she was in a very exclusive hotel and she was walking every night to the beach to make the perfect photo of the sunset. So she had this perfectionist streak. But they see it as creativity. For the app generation, creativity are capabilities of an app. And I think it shows generational difference. We perceive creativity as something wild, something out of the box. And today, it's just about using something to attain goals that have been attained in the past. In other words, demonstrating, proving that you can also use some apps. Okay, and findings from surveys. I think they are obvious. External image is the key for this generation. Relation, communication, may be supported by emoticons, and I don't know if it suffices for these people, but this is how they communicate their value to each other. One of the key elements of creation are hashtag and things that work, so they are repeating tried and tested topics that may result in popularity. Boys and girls, males and females alike, are resorting to very similar tricks, but there is one but. Women are able to strike the same pose 30 times to look slimmer. Men don't do it. And they also make the most of different applications. Sorry for taking so much of your time, but I wanted to go through my presentation. Okay, thank you very much. I would like to thank all the speakers. I think it was a very exciting session that provided us with food for thought. I think it inspired us not only in terms of education of children, so thank you very much once again, and it's lunchtime.